Have you ever really considered how some substances, even ones maybe you haven't heard much about, were once looked at so closely for their incredibly specific effects on the body?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Often those older observations hold some really surprising details about how health and illness were understood.
Exactly. So today we're doing one of our deep dives into a substance called carbonium sulphuratum.
Right, which also went by alcohol sulfurous or by sulfide of carbon, older names.
Yeah, and our guide here is the Homeopathic Materia Medica by William Boericke. We're aiming to sort of unpack the huge range and honestly the sometimes perplexing ways the substance was described and used.
And what's really striking, I think, is seeing how this single compound in this specific context is described as having such a deep and uh, disorganizing action.
Disorganizing.
It touches on so many different body systems and conditions. It gives you this incredibly detailed picture of its supposed effects. It's quite something.
It is. Boericke kicks off by calling it deep and disorganizing with an immense range of action. That sounds pretty dramatic, doesn't it?
It does.
Can you maybe paint a clearer picture for us? Like, what kind of patient or situation would make someone think of this remedy?
Sure. So the text specifically mentions its usefulness for patients who are, and this is the quote, broken down by abuse of alcohol.
Ah, okay.
So you're picturing someone whose health is severely hit by chronic alcoholism. The profile is generally quite specific too.
How so?
They're described as sensitive people, often worse from cold conditions. They might have wasted muscles like atrophy and this really noticeable lack of sensation. Boericke calls it anesthetic skin and mucous membranes.
Anesthetic, like numb.
Exactly, numbness. And just a general sense of weakness, debility, often with what's called a lack of vital heat. They just feel cold, can't stay warm. It paints a picture of someone really, truly run down.
That's a very vivid and kind of sad picture. The source also lists a really broad therapeutic sphere, though, of things like impotence, sciatica, even chronic plumbism.
Just lead poisoning, yeah, old term.
Right. Given that huge range, what systems does Boericke say it has a, quote, special affinity for? Where does it hit hardest?
Okay, so the text definitely highlights a special affinity for eyes.
Yeah.
We should definitely circle back to that because the details are pretty incredible.
Okay.
But beyond the eyes, it's mentioned for paralysis, specifically paralysis with intense congestion of nerve centers.
So brain and spinal cord impacts.
Exactly. Big impact there.
Yeah.
It's also linked to tabes, which in older texts usually meant a kind of progressive wasting, often of the spinal cord.
Like degeneration?
Yeah, leading to loss of coordination, sensation, strength. So definitely a major hit on the central nervous system. Plus, it mentions sensor difficulties in limbs and peripheral neuritis.
Nerve inflammation outside the brain and spine.
Right. So the nervous system, sensation. Those are absolutely key targets according to Boericke.
Okay, so we have the patient profile, the main targets. Let's really dig into the specifics now, system by system. It's almost like tracing this substance's unique path through the body.
Yeah, it's fingerprint, so to speak.
Let's start with the mind and the head. What's going on there?
Mentally, the picture is, well, not great. Irritable, anxious, impatient. It can apparently progress to stupor, a real mental fog, sluggishness.
Super, wow.
Yeah, and changeable moods. Strikingly, Boericke even mentions dementia alternating with excitement.
That's quite a swing.
It is. And on top of that, hallucinations affecting both sight and hearing. It really points to a profound disorganization of mental function.
And then physically in the head itself.
Common things like headache and dizziness are mentioned, but also that very specific feeling as from a tight cap.
Ooh, I know that sensation. Unpleasant.
Right, and noises in head. But here's a really peculiar detail. Ulceration of the lips, anesthesia of mouth and tongue.
Anesthesia again. Complete numbness in the mouth and tongue. That's odd.
It's incredibly specific, isn't it? Like a local anesthetic effect, just from the substance itself.
Wild. Okay, so that leads us to the eyes, where you said it has that special affinity.
Yes, and the detail here is just extraordinary. Boericke lists things like myopia, nearsightedness, asthenopia, which is eye strain,
Okay.
and dyschromatopia. That's difficulty distinguishing colors, potentially leading to color blindness.
So affecting color vision specifically.
Yes, and it gets even more precise. Cloudiness and atrophy of optic disc. And listen to this. Central scotoma for light and for red-green, not for white.
Okay, break that down. Scotoma is a blind spot.
Exactly, a blind spot right in the center of your vision. But the weird part is, in that spot, they supposedly can't see red or green. but they can still see white light.
That is incredibly specific. How would they even observe that back then?
It suggests really meticulous observation, doesn't it? It also mentions optic neuritis advancing toward atrophy, inflammation of the optic nerve getting worse, degenerating.
This sounds like a major visual impairment.
Oh, definitely. The text says, everything seems in a fog, vision greatly impaired, and explicitly color blindness.
It's the level of detail, not just bad vision, but how the vision breaks down. That's remarkable.
It really is. It implies a very targeted impact, maybe on the optic nerve or specific visual pathways, rather than just general blurring you might see with other things. That's what makes it stand out in the Materia Medica.
Okay. From the eyes, what about hearing? Does it affect the ears much?
It does. Hearing can be impaired. Often there are noises described, buzzing and singing noises, like an Aeolian harp.
Like a wind harp. That's oddly poetic for tinnitus.
Isn't it? It also lists tinnitus aureum more generally. And interestingly, it's even linked to Meniere's disease.
The inner ear disorder with dizziness, ringing, hearing loss.
Exactly. So definite ear involvement too.
All right, moving from the senses down into the body. What about the abdomen? What kind of trouble does it stir up there?
Abdominally, you see descriptions like pain with wandering swellings as from flatus, like pockets of gas moving around causing bloating.
Uncomfortable.
Very. Plus general distension with soreness and rumbling. But here's another oddly specific detail. Diarrhea every 4 to 6 weeks.
Periodic. That's strange.
Very periodic, yeah. Highlighting this rhythmic nature to the digestive upset.
Okay. And what about the male system? Boericke mentions impotence.
Yes, the impact there seems quite significant and debilitating, according to the text. It lists desire lost, parts atrophied, and frequent profuse emissions.
So hitting vitality and reproductive health hard.
Definitely underscores that disorganizing action we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Now, the extremities. You mentioned sensory issues, but the text seems to go into even more detail here. What stands out about the limbs?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. You see specific skin things like herpes on dorsal surface of hands.
So sores on the back of the hand.
Yeah, like cold sore type eruptions. Beyond skin, the limbs feel sore, bruised, and then that anesthesia pops up again. Anesthesia of arms and hands, profound numbness.
Numbness and soreness.
And then it gets worse. Cramps in limbs. Sharp, sudden, lightning-like pains with cramps. You can almost feel how awful that must be.
Oof. Yeah.
The hands get specific mention too. Fingers swollen, insensible, rigid, stiff. It's not just discomfort, it's losing function.
Wow. Stiff, numb, swollen fingers.
And the gait, how someone walks, is described as unsteady, tottering, worse in dark.
That sounds neurological, needing vision for balance.
Classic sign, yeah. The feet insensible again points to severe sensory loss. Sciatica gets another mention. And these flying pains returning regularly for a long time.
Flying pains, like shooting pains.
Seems like it, yeah. And they come back regularly. Also, pain in lower limbs with cramps and formication.
Formication, that's the creepy crawly ants on the skin feeling, right?
That's the one. And finally, it just confirms neuritis nerve inflammation. So a whole constellation of nerve and sensation problems in the limbs.
Okay. What about sleep? Anything noted there?
Just briefly, it mentions deep morning sleep with anxious, vexatious dreams. So maybe sleeping heavily towards morning, but the sleep quality is poor, disturbed.
Got it. And finally, the skin, besides the herpes on the hands.
Yeah, a few things. Anesthesia, again, that numbness, also burning, itching, ulcers, and small wounds fester. They don't heal well. And here's a really intriguing one from that era. It's noted as useful to restrain the growth of cancer.
Really? That's quite a claim.
It is. Needs context, of course, but it's in there. Also, furunculosis, which is recurring boils, and general chronic skin diseases with much itching.
Okay, so we've covered this incredible range of symptoms. Now, with these old materia medicas, understanding what makes things better or worse, the modalities is key, right?
Absolutely. Modalities give you the context for the symptoms.
So what are they for carbonium sulphuratum?
Okay, the text says symptoms are generally better in open air. Fresh air helps.
Makes sense. And worse.
Worse after breakfast, bathing. So the first meal of the day and even just washing can aggravate things. And also sensitivity to warm, damp weather. That makes things significantly worse.
Okay, better in cool, fresh air. Worse after eating, bathing, and in warm dampness. That gives a clearer picture. Now, Boericke also compares it to other remedies. Why is that important?
Comparisons are crucial. They help differentiate it from other substances that might seem similar on the surface. It highlights the unique signature of Carbonium sulphuratum.
So what does he compare it to?
Well, notably, potassium xanthate. Boericke says it's similar in action, especially affecting the brain's cortex.
It's the outer layer.
Right, leading to shared symptoms like loss of memory, marked blood degeneration, impotence, and senility. It suggests a similar kind of profound deteriorating effect.
Okay. Any others?
For the eye symptoms, specifically that central blind spot, he compares it to thyroid, a thyroid preparation.
Ah, interesting connection.
Yeah. And then there's a list of others: tuberculin, radium, carbo, sulfur, causticum, salicylic acid, cinchona. It kind of places it within a broader network of remedies used for serious, deep-seated conditions or specific types of pain.
And finally, application. How was it actually used? What about dosage?
The dose mentioned is the first attenuation. In homeopathic terms, that's a relatively low dilution, suggesting they saw it as quite potent.
So not extremely diluted.
Relatively speaking, no. And interestingly, besides taking it internally, it could apparently be applied locally for things like facial neuralgia, severe face nerve pain, and sciatica.
So internal and external use.
Seems so, yeah. Targeted application for nerve pain.
Okay. So to wrap up the substance itself.
Well, to summarize, Carbonium sulphuratum, as Boericke describes it, really does seem to have this broad, deep, and often disorganizing effect. It's got a unique profile from those major sensory and neurological issues impacting mind, memory, vision, limb function, right down to specific eye problems, skin conditions, even the male system. It's a remarkably detailed picture from those historical observations.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you listening to this? I think diving into a text like Boericke's, even though it's from a different time and medical framework, really shows the incredible level of detailed observation that went on.
Absolutely. The meticulousness is something else.
It's a powerful reminder of how people tried to understand the incredibly complex ways different compounds might interact with our bodies, even substances we barely talk about today.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. When you consider this sheer depth of detail recorded about something like carbonium sulphuratum, what does that level of observation, setting aside the specific framework for a moment, teach us? What does it tell us about how complex and interconnected our bodies really are, how they react in such specific ways? It kind of invites you to think about that enduring human quest to figure things out, to ease suffering, just through incredibly patient, detailed looking. It makes you wonder what other historical records might hold similar kinds of rich, maybe unconventional insights, doesn't it?